Hello, I'm Dr. Bond. This is Bond Report BAFA 16. People have their reasons, kinda. And we begin. Davis Love, the third said, you'd learn golf all the time, but you don't learn it all at once. It's the same with ophthalmology. You learn your profession, you learn your business, you learn your science, you learn your job, you learn your deal. You learn it all the time, but you sure don't learn it all at once. It's also, as Somerset Maugham said, a great nuisance that knowledge may really only be acquired through hard work. There's been a million shortcuts to this by a million guys smarter than me. Nobody's all right. When you go to a meeting, and a meeting would be 7,000 or 8,000 ophthalmologists and their hangers on, so you wind up to be typically, with guys bringing staff and things, it'd be 23, 24, 25,000 people that are walking around these booths, and you're constantly seeing people selling product. This will make you better. This is a good idea. This is a variation on this and that. And this is sold by experts, and a lot of the time it is a very intriguing and wonderful sounding idea. And it sounds like just the answer for what you've been doing. And it's more or less proverbial in the business that if you did everything and enthusiastically implemented every implement and idea and theory back in your practice at home with sufficient enthusiasm, you would die broken, disgraced within about 6 weeks. That a lot of it's a bad idea, but you will tend, even with that experience, you're looking for the next way to get a little smarter without a lot of hard work, to make things a little better. You're trying to make things better for patients also. Well, this will do meaningful. Used this before. Paul Johnson said it. The word meaningful today is pretty much meaningless. That's just a standalone statement. And there's a lot of the time where with Nietzsche, they will make things seem more complicated than they are. Here we have a solution to a non-existent problem. Here we'll have something we make up. I've had guys tell me, oh, gee, this will measure the size of a lens capsule for you when you don't think it will. And even if you do, you don't know how you'd apply that. And they believe it themselves, which is fairly easy. They'll talk about, well, in the future, gee, we can see that this is going to happen. The problem is there really is no such thing as the foreseeable future, as David McCullough said. That's just the truth. You think there is, but there isn't. These things can turn on a dime. For the example of this talk, changing the subject, at this particular meeting, you're going to get a machine that's going to screen patients for a particular thing or use in a particular setting. This will give you better power. This will give you a better idea of a position of a lens. This will do something technically for you that you can use to benefit patients, and it might be a very good idea, and it might turn out to be something that really would have been a good idea looking in the rear view, and these people may really have something. It's hard to know looking at it from the start. Well, gee, can your staff use it? Gee, can people do that? Will it fit in the time changes? A very good way to tell if you can use something or not is how easy the data is to interpret. Well, this machine will turn out results, but it has to be in a simple form that's realizable, that's real enough to be applied to some real life situation. And the more you have to turn it from engineering and science into art, in other words, you get these readings and these readouts and this statistics that come back from the machine, and the more you have to interpret them or put your own spin on them, the less they're really working. This needs to be more like engineering and more like science, and you want to get the art out of it. So if you got to interpret the results this particular thing gives you by a process kind of akin to alchemy or levitation, you don't really have much to work with. You're sort of making it up as you go along. And you'll get these unpromising looking machines. I've actually got a thing I wanted to look late 19th century here, but I've developed a magical machine. And this will overdiagnose almost anything. And you can go back and explain it. Generally, they're a little more gyro gear loose, a little more Rube Goldberg than that, but by God, I finally did it. I got a way to overdiagnose everything. So you're finding something, whether it exists or not. Will this actually help you, the magic machine? But you're trying to acquire more knowledge. That is what people are really looking for. The devil in the Garden of Eden wasn't selling anything but knowledge. All but synonymous, diabolical, all that means is ingenious, curious. In this case, what the devil was selling in the Garden of Eden was knowledge. And people quest for knowledge. They want the knowledge they haven't always thought. Now, in terms of buying, you want to go with the Stoic Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. The closer you come to a calm mind, the closer you come to strength. You don't want to get hustled. You don't want to overdo this. Boy, this would be great to know this about patience, wouldn't it? Well, when you get your thing back, do you know it? Do you have anything you can actually know? New opinions, John Locke, this was a hero of Jefferson's who adopted a lot of these ideas as his own, modified them. But new opinions are always suspect, if only because they're new. And this is an idea in politics. The founding fathers quoted a lot of John Locke, and it's true. And you're trying to apply lessons from the past. Now, W. Somerset Maugham said here, there are 3 rules to writing a novel, but no one knows what they are. This is a commonly applied thing. This is kind of the truth. And certain kinds of work you don't know. Furthermore, is this a new way of looking at the data you're presenting? Who really does see the human face correctly? Does the photographer or the mirror or the artist? Here's an example of Pablo, and I'm not sure how he sees that, but is that actually more real? Is that perhaps a more intelligent way to get at the data you're seeking for the predictability of what you're trying to do? And now sometimes the trouble is we're going to have another Charles Portis, this is the guy that wrote True Grit, and he said, he's got one of his characters talking about cubism and gringos there, and one of the guys is talking to a fellow named Lester. It's in there. He said, damn it, Lester, when you get right down to it, everything's not a damn cube. You can look around and see that. So that just thing that's stuck in my head, but everything's not. Sometimes the common sense has to enter into it. So you've got your salesman telling you, more or less, this motorcycle here, this thing will perfect, this thing will polish your car, rent this, you'll be able to see a fair number of patients. This is what we think the charges will be. This will give you some terrific information. This motorcycle, combination pony, blow dryer, vibrator, the perfect gift for girls of all ages. This is how you sell things. You're looking for a KOL to sell this. KOL means key opinion leader. It was a common part of the parlance of ophthalmology, and these are companies try to recruit to sell their more intellectual products, to sell their gauge or something. This guy will endorse it. He'll say, this helps you with patients. Here's my results. Here's my statistical things. This thing will give you a better idea of what you're trying to do with this or that. Now, trouble is, it's a democratic thing, but it's the collective wisdom of individual ignorance. No one really knows what that is. No one can see a significant number of people. And basically, I'm going to give you an example of some random KOLs. They're from all over. They don't know anything. In the same small neighborhood in Vienna 1913, these 5 guys lived in the same neighborhood and frequented the same cafes. Joseph Stalin, Joseph Broz Trotsky, Tito, Sigmund Freud, and Adolf Hitler. They're all rubbing elbows at these local Vienna cafes. February was the month they specified in this, 1913. Your KOLs are from all over. What is the motivation of a KOL? Why, key opinion leader, why do you get them to come and endorse this particular product? And the answer is, Dr. Johnson was talking about this after he got kind of screwed with the publishers on his dictionary. Only a blockhead ever wrote anything except for money. And so one thing that you're going to have to do if you're a company dealing with key opinion leaders is they're getting paid. So me, Joe Consumer, going to buy your machine will be totally advised through the advice of paid people. In the gambling business, they'll call them shills. And we did have shills, but you're hoping for something a little better. And the way I would express it is with Alfred Hitchcock here. Alfred Hitchcock would have a movie basically shot in his head and want to get actors who he often called cattle to work through these paces. And he had a very fixed idea of what he wanted. And he had an unvarying thing because of the time period he lived in and directed movies in. He would get a lot of method actors. And their classic buzz phrase was, gee, what was your motivation? What is my motivation for doing this in a particular way that Alfred wanted that shot? The invariable answer if an actor asked director Alfred Hitchcock what was his motivation for doing a particular thing, it would always be your salary. So, that's my imitation Alfred Hitchcock had later on a television program in the United States. And when I see anything he ever wrote, it's in that voice. Now, he was a pitch-in guy, too, on the movies. One day on Psycho, the set of Psycho, a storyboard guy doesn't show up. Alfred said, I don't have much to do in this scene. He gets up there and holds the storyboard. Or that's not a storyboard, holds the scene thing, directions for Psycho. So he's, we're trying to get a movie shot here. But the one thing, Alfred, your salary is the motivation. So you've been sufficiently motivated. So it goes with KOLs, as Alfred would do, for their participation can be ascribed, debated, but there will be no KOL movie where they're made without addressing the central motivation of, gee, what's my motivation? Your motivation is your salary. Now, are there other motivations? Yes, there are. You want something on your CV, on your curriculum vitae. You are an expert for this, and you'll probably give 50, 60 talks on this. These can all go in a CV under different titles. And really, this is kind of true. The function of the expert is not to be more right, but to be wrong for more sophisticated reasons. There's a lot of academic truth in that. They themselves don't know what they're saying is true. I've seen a guy, I know a lot of KOLs, I've been a KOL myself. You never really know how much of what you're saying is actually true. You're trying to do your best, but it'll be your impression. I've seen cocktail party gossip from the night before go over into a guy's presentation and be almost entirely that. You're talking about this or that there, it'll be in some presentation the next day. Or a guy will talk about the 200 cases he did. I know you haven't done one, and you're making this up, A lot of them are working on their escape plan. All of the academic guys, which KOLs tend to be, are always looking for upward mobility. They'd like to go to the next program. They'd always like to do something else. They're kind of stuck where they are. But this is once again the dog of the South. They'd like to move from where they are, but they can never quite achieve escape velocity. And this better CV that they get might help them. Newspaper device for making the ignorant more ignorant and the crazy crazier. This is another valuable tool for using that. This is a thing you can use to do those things. Substitute, once again, President Jefferson, the word newspaper for internet or talks that you're giving, and the thing's true. Here's the lady, substitute diagnostic machine. It's the same message. This will have opinion. This will develop its own momentum. And furthermore, guys, you've got to be able to take your word for something if you're one of the KOLs. Dr. Johnson said it, go into the street and give one man a lecture on morality and give the other one a shilling and see which one likes you better. This is the KOLs liking your machine. This is that. Give them a lecture. This will help you take better care of patients, or here's your $5,000 for this, 8 minutes of work that you can use again. And also, if you're a KOL, you're not me. You bought your $160,000 machine based on this, and it's only too easy to make suggestions, to make things in a talk. And later on, you try to escape the consequences of what you say, but you're not standing there holding the bag for this $160,000 that thing cost. And, gee, you didn't mean that, you didn't say that, well, that's the best advice you had at the time, but it wasn't your money. Only a blockhead ever wrote anything except for money, and this guy has it, and you don't. Now, this is a caveat emptor situation, and Harold Macmillan addressed that. You should be able to tell when a man is talking rot. That is the main, if not the sole, purpose of public education. And you sort of get a certain cynical thing with that. Here's a little bit older H.L. Mencken saying, it is a sin to believe evil of others, but it is seldom a mistake. And I've had my leg pulled. I'm John Barrymore, this is wife number 4, and he said, you never know how short a month is until you pay alimony. I paid $160,000 for what's called a sunrise machine that I was able to use twice. It sounded wonderful to me, but I remember thinking that you never know how short a month is until you make a payment on a sunrise that you can't use, that's going to wind up as a drink holder. So period when you're buying a machine, you're kind of a honeymoon area. And David Mamet said it about the movie business. He's describing something else. But basically, he's describing the beginning of a love affair trying to get one of these things used. And you bought that. It's full of surprises, and you're constantly getting fucked. And so that is more or less the meeting, getting equipment experience. You have to be very careful. And you settle in a state of paranoia. Here's young Charlie Manson going in. He looks rather different from a lot of the time you'll see him in the news in prison there. But paranoia is total awareness. I wish somebody had said that, but that's what he said. You do develop into a paranoid state, and you try not to be the fool from whom you and your money are going to be soon parted. But this is how you got to address, when you're on the receiving end, how you take testimony, talks, things from a KOL. I hope this has been clear. Thank you very much. Please subscribe. Please keep coming. Thank you.